What's up, YouTube? Sorry for the lack of new videos lately. We have a new toy hauler that we bought, and I'm just looking forward to getting a chance to use it this spring. And getting prepared for that, we're also going to be fixing up this old Ford F250 that I bought. So I'm really excited about that. It's a 97 OBS, 7.3 Powerstroke, 5-speed. It's got quite a few miles on it, 270,000 miles, so it's a pretty good truck. I'm really excited about it. It's needed a little bit of work though. One of the injectors maybe wasn't working right. I'm not sure. It was running just a little bit rough, idling rough, and the more I looked under the hood, the more I just saw that it needed a little bit of love, a little bit of maintenance. So doing the glow plug harnesses, which are also kind of integrated with the injector harness and the valve covers on the Powerstroke 7.3, so I went ahead and did those. Now I'm just go ahead and I'm getting ready to button everything up. I'm waiting for a couple of little seals to come in the mail that connect the harness to the injectors, and yeah, did a couple of other things under the hood while I was there. I deleted the little flapper on the turbo for closing and opening the exhaust. Those can go bad and lead to catastrophic failure. So I went ahead and deleted that while I was in there. I'll show you guys while we're underneath the hood in a minute exactly how I did that and what I removed and how I got that taken care of. It was kind of a pain in the butt, I have to say. One of the bolts in the back is just really hard to get to, but I did get that off. I did get that deleted. I went ahead and ordered the little plug that you plug into the harness so that the computer doesn't throw the check engine light when it sees that that's missing. I got a new air filter to get rid of the stock air filter, which is pretty restrictive on the F250, and the previous owner, it was missing the bolts. The lid was just sitting on. It was sucking straight air through the filter anyhow, so I needed to replace that. I went ahead and bought a elbow by Spectre and a Riff Raff silicone boot to replace the oil permeated air intake boot, the stock orange boot that was completely soaked with oil. Due to the way that the crankcase breather works on the F250, it pushes all of the blow-by oil back into the intake before the turbo, and then it soaks your intake boot to the point where it basically just becomes like flimsy and rubbery and eats away. So I went ahead and replaced that. I'll show you guys that in a second. I'll show you my new intake, and I'll show you the exhaust intake that I started with, and show you the oil catch can I'm going to be installing in between the crankcase breather and the air intake, so that none of that blow-by will be getting back into the intake like before. It'll all go into a nice little can where it can be drained and changed with the rest of the oil when I do my oil changes and my filter change. So yeah, that's what's going on. Just got the new truck over here. It started raining, so I went ahead and set up some tarps. So if you guys can see that back there, I put a tarp over the hood so I can work on it even though it is kind of pouring outside. I got the bikes and everything in here. The Raptor's kind of down right now for maintenance. I need to get the swing arm bearing fixed on it. I've got one more little surprise for the Banshee that I haven't quite announced just yet, but you guys will be looking forward to seeing a video about that soon. Another little trinket, little surprise that the Banshee is going to get. I'm not so sure how it's going to work just yet, but really excited to put it on there. I won't spill the beans just yet, but look forward to a new Banshee upgrade coming soon. Just go ahead and show you guys some of the stuff though that I've been working on the truck. I know this isn't about four-wheelers, but I think it's pretty relevant to the channel because in order to ride, a lot of us, we don't have access to land directly from our house, and having a good toy hauler, truck, trailer, whatever you get to the trails with is important if you want to be able to go travel to places like where we ride up in the mountains and things. So this is my new toy hauler, the F250, and the 22-foot toy hauler that Twinkle's found for us. I'm just real excited about that. All I've ever used my entire life was the back of a pickup truck or a little tiny landscape trailer. So it's going to be really interesting having a camper that we can go places. It really is going to help me out because we'll be able to go further and stay in places that maybe we wouldn't have stayed before, where we can have facilities to stay for longer and get more trail blogger videos. So hopefully we'll have some new videos with the toy hauler and the quads and everything soon. Looking forward to posting videos about the toy hauler soon, some of the modifications and repairs we need to do to it. like most things that I have, that's kind of a fixer-upper. So look forward to that. We're planning on fixing it up and making it better than new, though. Twinkles has got some ideas about how to redecorate the interior and just redo it so it's better off for toy hauling. It's in really, really good shape, but it does need to be set back up for hauling toys again. The previous owner had basically just been using it to camp in, and they didn't even haul toys with it. They just used it for living in and camping out of. So it's in really good shape, but they have some flooring in there that's really not good for, you know, wet ATVs to sit on. So we'll be replacing the flooring and adding some tie downs and things like that. Someone stole the battery off the front while it was in storage from the previous owner, and I think they also stole the ladder off of the roof, so we'll be getting a new ladder, and yeah, some other things we'll be doing to it. So this is a boot by Riff Raff Diesel, 100% made in the USA. Diesel Performance, you know, they have a kit that comes with this boot and then the other two boots for the Turbo Spider. So I'll show you guys that in just a second, but this is basically going to be the closest side to the Turbo. This is the crankcase breather vent right here. I went ahead and reconnected this with some you know, some really high strength JB weld so it wouldn't leak anymore. There was quite a bit of like residual oil coming out of that. This is where the crankcase breather feeds back into the intake, and then, like I said before, it was feeding into the turbo. So it won't be doing that anymore. I'm going to install this catch can that I got off of Amazon. Added some brass fittings so that it would fit the size, you know, that comes out of the crankcase breather. This is drainable into an oil can where you can, you know, dispose of that oil when you do your change, and then a little level, sight level on the side there where you can see, you know, how much oil's in your catch can. I went ahead and got some new tubing. This is from O'Reilly's, and it's just their oil-proof general use hose. I think it's a heater hose, but they said it is oil-proof, so it should be fine. This is the new air filter I got, and you can see it's a monster. You know, it's a pretty big one. I think it's off of a tractor or something. It's an international air filter type thing, Caterpillar diesel tractor motor type thing. Just for size comparison, I'll go ahead and throw something over there that you probably recognize, just so you can see the size difference. Here's a Pepsi can next to it, and it's just massive. I'll go ahead and put it over here to show it to you. This is the stock air filter on the left, or on the right. So there's a stock air filter on the right, and then the new air filter on the left. So the new one's kind of a round one, and this one was the kind that you squeeze into the box. And there's the box, and the box had these two bolts that you're supposed to have connected on top up here, and only one of them was there, and it wasn't even tightened down, so the air was just basically sucking right over the top of this air filter. And rather than go buy the bolts to try and make this one work, just gonna toss that aside, maybe use the bottom of it and put this one inside of it. This is a pretty common air filter, I guess, for these F250s that a lot of guys run. Big heavy duty round air filter with the new Riff Raff silicone boot. I'll show you the boot I'm replacing in just a second. This is the stock Ford boot. It was in good shape. It's the one next to the turbo on the other side of the crankcase breather that was full of oil from the breather feeding in, and then all the oil, you know, permeating the rubber to the point where it was just worthless. This is a 60-degree elbow I got from Spectre. I think I ordered this off of eBay. You can find these at AutoZone and O'Reilly, that kind of place, but it's just a 60-degree 4-inch elbow, and then I'm going to use the stock hose clamps. There's my oil catch can, like I mentioned before. I'll mount that underneath the hood, kind of off to the right, and I'll show you guys where the oil breather feeds back in. Here's my valve covers, and you've got two valve covers, of course, for a V8. And one of the valve covers, it's actually the one that sits on the driver's side. You can see the driver's side valve cover has these two holes here, and there's this box that kind of sits on top. They call it the dog house because it's kind of shaped like a little dog house. And normally it sits this direction, and there's a couple O-rings underneath it that keep it tied on there underneath that sit right there. And normally it sits like that, and then that feeds, you know, directly back up into the intake I was just showing you guys over there, the one that feeds and, you know, fills your intake full of oil. So rather than do that, what a lot of guys do, and the mod I'm learning, is that you flip this back the other way so it goes the other direction, and you feed that oil into the catch can through this, you know, 3/4 inch, whatever size hose that is right there. Feed the oil over into the catch can, and then the catch can has a vent that goes back over to the intake, so you don't have a vacuum leak. So that's the whole idea, and that's what I'm going to be doing, is flipping my doghouse around backwards. Got some new seals. I got all the oil I could out of the doghouse just to clean it up to begin with. There's like a kind of a metallic spongy material inside of here. You kind of see it right there, that, you know, that gets filled with oil. So you want to kind of clean out as much of the old dirty oil as you can so that the air can still get through there, and you know, try and catch as much of the oil as you can. So that is going to sit there. That's the oil catch can mod. And then these are some other rubber silicone boots that came in the kit with the intake boot from Riff Raff Diesel Performance. And again, 100% made in USA. Those will be sitting, if you look under the motor, they'll be sitting on the spider at the bottom, one there and one there. So there's two different ones. This is the turbo and the turbo spider below that, and then there's one boot on each side. So I didn't see a leak in those, but since I have it all tore apart and I'm going to be replacing my boots and things anyhow, I figured I might as well just go ahead and replace them while I have it all taken apart. So this is a line I added right here for my boost gauge, and this line normally sits right about here, and I added that as a vacuum line capillary tube that runs over into the cab for my boost gauge. And I'll probably do a whole nother video about my gauges later. I've got quite a few of them that I added, and it would be kind of a long video, but basically I added some gauges: boost, temperature, oil pressure, that kind of thing. I added a digital volt power gauge, and you know, just some things to keep an eye on it. Like I said before, I'm replacing the wiring harness, which is also the valve cover. You can see I got the valve covers off on both sides. This valve cover over here, I've got it sitting there waiting to be installed. I haven't plugged in the injectors yet because there's a little tiny seal inside that I ordered. They were bad all the way around, and it just keeps the oil out of the head of the injector. So show you guys a little closer view of the injector head here. So this is the injector here. This is the solenoid on top of the injector, and there's a plug here, and your harness plugs in there. It goes up inside there, and oil gets inside of here if the seals are bad. So I ordered some new ones, and you know, I went ahead and replaced down in there. You can also see right down in there, that's the glow plugs. Replaced all the glow plugs all the way around already. So new glow plugs, new harnesses, valve covers seals, and some new gauges. While I had this apart, one thing I also did, I was talking to a kind of a 7.3 guru, and he was talking about what happened to him was his flapper that opens and closes there on the other side of your turbo. The solenoid can fail or start to misbehave, and it'll actually close at the wrong time. The idea is it'll close your exhaust and warm up your engine when it's cold in the morning, and then the rest of the time it's open while you're driving around. And so what'll happen is if it freaks out, it'll close the exhaust at the absolute wrong time, and that's what happened to him. And it actually blew up his engine, or his turbo anyhow, because it closed that exhaust valve when he was cruising down the freeway at like 80 miles an hour. So what a lot of guys do, and what I'm learning, what I did to mine, is you pull that off right there, that piece right there, right in the middle there that has that clamp. You pull that off, and it was pain in the butt, I'm not gonna lie. I had no idea how tight it is in there to get in there. I mean, the valve cover over here was hard enough to get to. There's some bolts over here that you have to get the cover off, but this thing's back here behind. What a nightmare. Anyway, I did get it off though. I'm glad it's over, or glad I did it, but man, it was kind of a pain. I don't mean to be a whiner, but my hands just barely fit back there to do it, and I had to really wiggle those loose and then wiggle them back on, and tightening them was even harder. So anyhow, that's been deleted. I went ahead and pulled the flapper out, took it over to Crazy D's, and he welded up the hole that it leaves when you pull the hinge and the flapper out. And now I don't have to worry about that going bad. I'll post a caption. I'm trying to think of the name of the valve, but basically it's just exhaust valve that opens and closes when it's at a certain temperature. So yeah, getting ready to button this thing up. Can't ready to get it going. Like I said, it's going to be towing that big toy hauler that we got, so we can go camping and do all kinds of fun stuff. I need to do a pressure test on the radiator. I did see some leaks. This is all rain from before I put the tarp up so that I could work on it. But before, what I was seeing was over here on the side of the radiator, I was finding radiator fluid after I would take it for short test drives. I would see a little bit of radiator fluid on top of the battery and stuff like that. So I know something weird's going on. I must have a little tiny pinhole. I'm probably going to end up replacing this radiator, but I'm going to pressure test it first to make sure that the leak isn't somewhere else, like one of these rubber lines or, you know, the water pump or something like that. Don't exactly want to be just throwing money at it unless I have to, and the radiators aren't exactly cheap. I think they're like $300 or $400 on Amazon. So there you go, guys. That's an update on my new F250 7.3 liter. Obviously she's not ready to go tonight, but she's going to be ready to go pretty soon. Get these valve covers back on, get my harnesses and my injectors all hooked back up. I did buy a Bluetooth dongle that I plan on using to do the buzz test, buzz test on the injectors, and basically you buzz each one at a time and you listen to them. And you know, as they buzz, as the solenoids buzz, they make a certain noise, and you know, you listen to that noise, and if one doesn't sound right, then you know that that solenoid, that injector, is not doing its job. So just basically gonna do that, and there's some other tests with the Bluetooth dongle that you can do. You hook it up to your Android phone and use the Torque app, and I've been watching some YouTube videos about how to do that and how to just check and make sure your injectors are good. One thing that's kind of scary, one of these things is not like the other. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, here, 4 injector solenoids. I'm sure you can see the other one, but there's 4 here. One of them is white, and so it looks like they put an aftermarket solenoid, maybe a whole aftermarket injector. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign, but that one looks like it's been replaced recently, and this is the side where it had all the residual diesel everywhere. I've cleaned up a lot of it now, but there was literally just diesel completely coated everywhere on the underside of this thing. So just, you know, some stuff I've been working on the F250. We're getting ready to go, so we have something to tow with to get to the trails. Brand new alternator on here. When I first got it, the alternator stopped working on me. I don't know if that was because maybe this radiator or wherever my leak was getting, you know, radiator fluid in it. I don't think they're going to work very well if they're completely wet on the inside. It's like any other electrical device, they don't work very well once they get wet. So not sure what happened there, but we went ahead and replaced that anyhow. I did have to replace these little connectors here. This is a brand new connector I put on here. And then this one there was a little gray connector here, and Ford wanted $85.60 when I went to the dealer for it. So I ended up just using one of these little flat spade type connectors on there instead, because I don't have $85. I think I went to Rock Auto, and I found was the cheapest to get that. If anybody knows of a cheaper or better place to get it, it's a little gray connector that goes on the 7.3 alternator. The second, it's a little single pin. And $40 was the cheapest I could still find. And so what I ended up doing was just putting one of these on it instead. One of these little, you know, crimp on, one of those guys. I forget what gauge wire this is, but I just put that on there for now, and at least it's on there. That might have been one of the reasons why that alternator went bad. I don't know how important that wire is, but here's the Bluetooth dongle. I got this off of eBay. I think it was like $5 or $6, and you plug this into your ODB2 connector. OBD2 connector. This is an ELM327 mini, and you plug this into underneath the dash, and then you hook up the Torque app on your Android phone, and you can run all kinds of diagnostics. It gives you little gauges and stuff, and
you can just learn a lot about your engine, how healthy it is, you know, run the codes, figure out any trouble codes, that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to using this. I haven't got to play with it yet. Got some orange LED markers put on the trailer and the back of the truck just for towing. Make sure it's nice and visible on the road. Got some electrical switches and stuff in here I'm going to install just for, you know, various stuff like lighting the dash lights up and stuff like that. Some other 12-volt wiring type things like zip ties. We got some heat shrink. Got some black tape and some solder. I got all that stuff at Harbor Freight just because it's cheap there. Some more of this type wiring wrap here. And this is the OEM hose here, and it's just completely permeated and soaked with oil to the point where it's like really flimsy, and you can see where it's just like ripping in a bunch of spots like that. So I decided, you know, I really didn't want this to leak, because right next to this is your turbo. If this leaks air, it's basically leaking dirty air straight into the turbo, and we don't want that. So toss that aside, and I went ahead and got this. This is the riff-raff intake I was talking about. So this is the riff-raff intake that comes in the kit with the other two silicone boots for the turbo spider. Thank you, riff-raff, for selling a cool replacement product for that Ford OEM product that was overpriced in my opinion. And the Ford product is overpriced, and in my opinion this is a better product for a cheaper price. So thanks again, riff-raff, for selling that.